So as we continue to explore innovative solutions for layer 2, I'm pleased to introduce our next guest, Maya, co-founder and CSO from Igra Labs, to present Igra-based rollup for Limitless Defi. Welcome, Maya.
Hi, my name is Maya, and I'm here trying to introduce you to the first actual based rollup on Kaspa, right? We are building the first smart contracts on Kaspa in order to create an opportunity for developers to build DeFi apps and dApps that weren't possible until now. Now, what is Igra? We're a based rollup on Kaspa. Now, we heard a lot about polar bears previously, but polar bears live on Polychain. And this presentation is going to explain to you why Igra is really the only design we have seen of a based rollup on Kaspa and not one that piggybacks on the Kaspa community. Now, Igra is really essentially using the Kaspa block DAG as a sequencer and for settlement in order to introduce for developers the possibility to have atomic programmability. And that will enable us to see new primitives ingrained within one ZK-based rollup that we haven't yet seen in communication in one singular workflow within an L1. Oh, sorry. Now, what are the biggest problems in crypto? Let's just kind of zoom out and think big. We have seen Ethereum and Solana and try and deal with the biggest problems that they have, and that is the trilemma, right? How do you scale in a decentralized fashion that is still secure? And as Ethereum has evolved, we have seen more and more L2s, but those L2s don't necessarily use the L1 properties ingrained within Ethereum, or the base layer as we call it, right? There's a misalignment that is rooted in the fact that those L2s use a multi-sig bridge and don't have the same incentives as the L1 token. And that resulted in a lot of liquidity fragmentation and an attempt to slice and dice the different features that a blockchain really has, right? And if we were to break it down, what we see is that you need data availability, execution, sequencing, and consensus. And the existing L2s in the ecosystem only use the security of an L1. And then the Ethereum community introduced the concept of a based rollup, right? However, the one problem of a based rollup is that it always rolls up to the minimum viable constraint that dictates what the speed and what is possible. Now, let's just kind of rewind this, okay? What is a based rollup? A based rollup, as I told you, is one that uses the L1 both for sequencing, for settlement, and for consensus. Now, the previous project, Kaspa, explained very nicely how they're going to have polar bears. But polar bears, I don't know if you know this, they live in Antarctica, meaning they don't actually use the consensus of Kaspa or the settlement. Now, what we are looking to do in Igra is both sequence and settle and scale out the consensus from Kaspa to an EVM layer, which is which is Igra. And as doing so, we are going to try and scale up where our limitations are based on the speed of the block DAG sequencing, i.e. Kaspa. Now, why? Because right now, Kaspa is on track to become the fastest world sequencer after the introduction of Crescendo in May. This is a basic scheme of how Igra Labs kind of is going to work, right? You're going to have users send transactions both to the L1 Kaspa for sequencing, and then be able to confirm the state transition within Igra nodes. Now, I kind of rushed you into Igra's basic proposition, basically because I got triggered by polar bears. It was penguins with tariffs this week. Now we're into polar bears. So let's talk about the mainland, right? What is Igra? We're an atomically programmable EVM chain that is a based rollup. And we have 4 basic pillars that navigate how we're progressing and what we're building. That is sequencing using Kaspa, settlement, meaning right now in the initial rollout of our mainnet, we're going to be settling on Kaspa, but as we scale up, we will enable settlement on any ZK chain. 3, high performance. I mean, as those ingrained in the different progressions of the crypto ecosystems have seen that we are going into a real-time settlement world for high performance as more and more institutional and TradeFi are looking into using blockchains and crypto. 4, consensus. The validity and the consistency of different state transition between different logic zones, as we heard in the previous panel, are going to be validated and verified through Kaspa as the base layer. And of course, like, let's not forget the fact that due to us building on Kaspa, we ultimately inherit a Bitcoin-grade a proof of work security that is second only to Bitcoin. Now, I don't know if there are any builders in the room, but for those who are, just so you know, today is Wednesday. Friday, we are launching our DevNet, and it's going to enable any EVM DApp on Solidity to launch on Igra. Okay, wait. So, what do we have? 5 properties that you don't see in any L2 today that is EVM compatible or on other wannabe based rollup. 1, Bitcoin grade security inherited from the L1. 2, real-time fast performance. And we are able to be, because of the speed of TPS, we are able to be MEV resilient for any TradeFi or real-world assets looking to create DeFi apps on us. Now, why is that exciting? Because we're going to be able to offer dApps synchronous atomic composability, or what I call atomic programmability. Now, that sounds really big, and we had a bunch of professors on stage explaining to us all the technical know-hows of the ingrained properties and features. But what can you build with that, right? That's where it gets exciting. So, if you're familiar with DeFi, you know stable coins and perpetual markets and so forth. However, they're all constrained by the amount of liquidity that you have at the base asset. The minute we'll have asynchronous communication within one logic zone, we'll be able to offer on-chain DEX or CLOBs, order books that are able to fulfill orders and trades within one single block. That means that you can build stable coins on board of tokens that don't necessarily have that big of liquidity and mitigate that risk. Why? Because Igra is going to enable DeFi apps to build risk engines, the kind that were only available in traditional finance, but didn't have that possibility due to the latency in block settlement. Now, we heard a lot about the ZK changes coming into Kaspa, and I think it's important to take the time out and say, Igra Labs is a project that is based in 2 different phases. 1, we're going to have a based rollup, the one that we're launching, in Q2, an incentivized testnet that is non-ZK. And that is due to the fact that Kaspa doesn't have the ZK verification opcode at this time. And our goal when we're building this, we want to be first to market. We want to be able to offer builders the possibility to start building, launching, and experimenting within Igra. So our first priority is building. Then, when we're going to have ZK VM, we're going to be able to have a phase 2 of a ZK-based rollup on top of Kaspa. We expect that to happen by Q4, launched in Q1 of 26. Now, this is a list of some of the partnerships that we already have, but if you're a builder, if you're a DApp, if you're a dev, and you're curious how these features can integrate into what you want to build, please reach out and talk to us. And this is a good opportunity to also say that we're going to have a very specific design for the Igra nodes, meaning, yes, we will have a token. That token is not for gas. Igra is built from the lessons learned on the Ethereum L2 experiment, meaning all gas in Igra will be paid either in Kaspa or iCas, which is a wrapped version of Kaspa. However, we will need a token in order to secure the Igra nodes that validate the different state transition. And for that, we are also reaching out to miners, mining pools, anyone who has Kaspa and wants to participate. If you hold a node in Kaspa and you want to participate in Igra, please talk to us. And I think it's also important to state out that as in crypto, every token has a function other than the utility, and we are building for the community. Meaning those tokens, the Igra token will also be a governance token for a separate DAO coming in to let the community take part in all the changes and the roadmap ahead of us. So as I said, we're looking to talk to miners, developers for partnerships, and I think it's really important, just because this is the week we're launching the DevNet, to mention the amazing team that really kind of rushed and built this to make it possible so that the testnet will be out within a couple of weeks. And that's Vadim, Mike, Igor, Bejad, and Dennis. And Ilya. I forgot Ilya. Thank you.